It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So
It's Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, Jill Foer Hirsch joins the show to share her experiences battling breast cancer. Welcome to the show. If you are listening to this in the month of October, then you are aware that it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And instead of bringing doctors and researchers to discuss the ins and outs of the disease that has touched people in my life and in many people's lives, I really don't know anyone who hasn't been touched by breast cancer or have someone in their family who's had breast cancer. But I thought I would take the time to talk to someone about the reality of their treatment and how they handled it on an emotional level and what it's like. Something that we can kind of relate to, because I don't think a lot of us put ourselves in that position of we will be sick and it will be a very tough illness to go through. I mean, it's something we never want to go through firsthand, but I think Jill's perspective in her book might be of help to anyone facing the unbelievably daunting task of cancer treatment. She's got a new book called When Good Boobs Go Bad, a Mammoir. And if you're not ready to talk breasts today, well, and I'll be honest, I wasn't prepared to talk to them about them this much. But if you are not prepared for it, then you are out of luck, because it is Boob Central here today. Jill faced cancer with a sense of humor, and you know what? So can you. So let's kick off Breast Cancer Awareness Month with today's guest, Jill Foer Hirsch. Now, I have never been struck by any illness more than, a flu, an occasional. I did have, my tonsils taken out when I was 6.
Right.
But I've never had a situation where, especially when you bring up the C word, cancer, that, death might be part of the situation. So when you found out about cancer, what was that first thought that goes through your head?
That was actually really close to the thought that went through my head is, oh, I'm not a sick person. You must have the wrong person. I'm the person who's never been to the hospital, never had a stitch, never gets sick. And you do kind of think of cancer as something that happens to other people. And just sitting with that for a little while, just absorbing it is exactly what I had to do.
Did you have the Walter White moment? I'm not sure if you watched Breaking Bad, but when the very first episode, they tell him he has cancer, but all he hears is noise after they say the word cancer. The world kind of dissolved away from him. He couldn't hear anything or understand anything. All he heard was the word cancer, and it was like his life ended.
I think it wasn't so shocking to me because I saw it. I mean, when they did the sonogram, I saw it, and it looked to me, cancer. Hey, here I am. That's what it looked like to me. So it wasn't shocking to me. I was trying to absorb a lot at once. I was at the office, so I was trying to figure out, okay, I need to keep it together and, find a way to deal with this. But no, I heard most of what she said.
Well, was it a regular checkup that you found it, or was there a reason why you went in?
Yes, just a regular annual mammogram that I always do. And they thought they saw something and called me back, and sure enough, there it was.
And it was, obviously, if you saw it in the sonogram, it had to be fairly large.
It was actually a secondary tumor. The first tumor was sort of buried in tissue, and so it actually had to spread before they would even see it. So it was a secondary tumor, which I didn't understand at all when they were like, well, now we need to find out where the tumor is. And it's, oh, well, didn't you just take a picture of it? Why is that tumor not good enough? I liked that tumor. I saw that tumor. It seemed fine.
All of a sudden, their judgment comes into question. Wait a minute, you didn't see that? I'm not a doctor. I saw the tumor.
Right, exactly. So, and then that's the other thing. You start learning some of this stuff really fast, whatever your specific situation is. So, yeah.
And I'm here with Jill Foer Hirsch. She's written a new book. It's called When Good Boobs Turn Bad, a Mammoir, which, and it's really about how you handle cancer in a funny way it's not necessarily a death sentence or just miserable for the entire time. You can look at it from the light side of things.
Exactly.
So when were you immediately jokey about it, or did you feel like,
yeah,
I got to set this in and then maybe I can start joking about it?
I mean, I think I tried to be pretty honest in my book. You know, I cried for sure, but my typical way of handling things is through humor. And so, I did start making jokes right away, not only to make myself feel better, but I feel like people don't know what to say. And, you know, you've been on the other side. Oh, my God, she might die. And you don't know what to say. So it was partially for me, obviously, but also to put other people at ease. So, yeah, I would have to say that I was pretty irreverent right from the start.
Yeah, I think it's really just a defense mechanism for a lot of us. I mean, that's how I became funny, or in general. Not some people may not agree with that statement, but I became funny as a kid as a defense mechanism, as a way to get attention, but also a way to fight off bullies to some degree. So, and a lot of people deal with pain or shock with humor, and I think that's the kind of the crux of your book, is to talk about how it's okay to do that, because I think a lot of times people feel guilty about making jokes about such a serious topic.
Right. And it's one of those things, you know, if I didn't have breast cancer or had breast cancer, I probably wouldn't make a lot of cancer jokes. But now I have entree, I have full privileges. So that's right there out on the table. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's just humorous aspects to everything, and that is how a lot of humans get through things. And a lot of humor is based on human suffering, to be honest.
Yeah, tragedy. Comedy is tragedy plus time. So, you know, if something bad happens and you get past it, it's easy to joke about, but I think a lot of people get caught up in the moment, and everybody's coming up to you. Everybody's going, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, this is horrible. Oh, are you okay?" And they're not coming, "Hey, you got cancer. Look at you. Ha ha." The whole atmosphere turns very serious very quickly. Exactly.
And I'm not accustomed to that. You do spend a lot of time telling people that you're going to be okay. It's just funny. That's just the mode you get into. You know, I'm going to be just fine. They caught it early. Everything's good, because people don't know what to say, and you just want to let them know right away, you know, reassure them right away that, you know. And I also think it was good for me to repeat that message. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, because the alternative is just miserable. I mean,
oh, my God, we're all going to die.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big proponent of positive thinking in general. I think you think the way you think, and that's the way it works. But in certain cases, it's almost useless to even think negative, because the only thing negative that could happen is death in this situation. It's not like, oh, this is going to be horrible, I'll get through it. It's more like, oh, this is horrible, I'm not going to get through it. So what kind of support system did you have? Because that's the key thing for me. If I ever get sick, and I'm always thinking my poor wife is going to take the brunt of most of that, because she's my only support system.
Right. I mean, my husband was obviously front and center. Fortunate that, you know, we've been married for a long time. We obviously know each other really well, and whatever we didn't know about each other, we learned. And so he was my immediate support. I'm lucky that he's sort of medically oriented. He isn't, like, I'm really squeamish. If it had been the other way around, I don't know. So he was my primary caregiver. And my mom had breast cancer 2 years earlier, so we had kind of seen it. And so I have, you know, very fortunate to have lots of family and friends who immediately rallied, and I took advantage of that. I mean, I took advantage of people who say they want to help. It was like, here's what you can do. I need this. Mostly to try and give my husband a break from time to time.
And did seeing what your mother go through help you, or did it hurt you, or how did her experience affect your experience?
I think it helped me a lot, because the fear of the unknown is usually the worst part. And I saw her go through it and come out the other side. And that's what I was immediately thinking was, okay, well, she got through it, I can get through it.
Well, let us walk through this, because for me, something like this is, really intimidating, because I don't go to the doctors very much at all. I think, not that women should go through this, but I think they're more prepared to go through it because they have a tendency of going to the doctors a lot more.
Right.
They're used to going to the doctors on a regular basis, so, that encounter, me going to the hospital, only happens if they take me by ambulance. Right. So when you find out, oh my God, I now have to go find a new doctor that in an expertise that I never thought I'd need to. You have to find an oncologist or somewhere. How does that process work? Do you have any suggestions on how you can find a good doctor if you've never had to, if the only doctor you have is your general care?
I mean, I started by going on a referral from my gynecologist, who's the doctor, who prescribed the mammogram, and the first doctor I spoke to about this other than the radiologist. But I didn't love him. He was a little dismissive and a little condescending, and I did have the instinct at the beginning that this was going to be a journey. So I knew that there was a hospital in the area that was, really well rated, and, if you're going to do that kind of thing, there's the hospital to be. And so I started there with who led their department for breast cancer, and, happened to strike pay dirt when I found my breast surgeon. But I also didn't know that you need a breast surgeon and a plastic surgeon if you're going to have reconstruction, and that there's a difference between a medical oncologist and a radiation oncologist. I mean, who would know all that stuff?
No, I know. Like I said, I just thought they'd be cancer doctor, but that's
right,
not
exactly.
That's not the way it works.
It's the all-encompassing. And so, if you have one good doctor, he or she is going to guide you through that and, let you know what you need next.
So you had to run this gauntlet of different doctors. How do you find the ones that mesh with you? Because it's okay to say no to a doctor. Like, I don't like the first one you went to. You went to him because that's he was referred to, but he was kind of a cranky, right, probably a little too direct, had no bedside manner. And so you took a lot of people might have just stayed with that doctor.
And it was tempting because your first instinct is everyone says that this guy's great. You have to remember that there's lots of great surgeons or lots of great oncologists. And I think for me, the problem with the first doctor I saw was that he was humorless. And so I'm joking around and he's staring at me like I just grew two horns. And I'm sorry, even if my joke's not funny, like, I have cancer, just laugh. You know what I'm saying? Like,
how much did you use that with friends? I mean, how much did you really use that with friends? Come on. I know my jokes are bad, but now you have to laugh.
I milked it for everything it was worth. Absolutely.
There you go. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the perks. You got to look at the bright side. But, it was really hard to say, okay, I'm going to step back and it's going to take another week, which in Cancerville is like a lifetime of cancer cells multiplying, or that's what you're thinking. But I knew I had the right surgeon when, she was warm and easy to talk to, and she didn't speak medicalese. She spoke English and, more importantly, laughed at my jokes. So it's very important to have that fit, because this is somebody obviously you're trusting your life with. So just because they're a great surgeon doesn't mean they're great for you.
Yeah, they're probably a technical specialist, not necessarily the bedside manner types. And then you have to be worried about just the opposite. Sometimes they're really good in the room, and right, you don't want to get a happy, nice person who can't fix you or help you.
Right. I mean, she went to medical school in this country, and I checked that out. Top half of her class, things like that. I checked that out for sure.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned in the book is that it gets all these doctor visits, it starts to become pretty boring.
Yeah.
So you had a suggestion that you should start, packing a bag and recruiting friends.
Absolutely. When you asked me earlier about, do you really hear anything once they tell you have cancer, does everything go blank? It didn't for me then. But it did at doctor appointments at certain points in time, where they're drawing pictures of little animated lymph nodes and telling me what's going on. And your mind is already racing with other things. So having someone with me, which in my case was my husband, was really helpful. He took notes, he asked questions, he reminded me of questions I wanted to ask. So I think with any illness, it's really important to have someone with you for moral support, and because they'll hear things that you didn't hear, they'll hear things differently than you heard them. And that's always good. And you're going to spend a lot of time in waiting rooms, and once you're caught up on People magazine, there's not much left.
There's Us magazine. There's Entertainment Weekly. What are you talking about? There's always a quality amount of magazines in a doctor's office. They're known for that.
Right. Well, I used to be above that but I was, no, I wasn't above Us magazine. Like, I was like, oh, you can't support the tabloids? No, who cares? Yeah, I read whatever junk they had. Yeah, definitely.
Now, when you packed this bag, you started to realize that there seemed to be recurring themes whenever you went to the new doctors or to a different doctor. I know that one of the things was having forms already pre-made in your bag. Is there some other things that you can make sure they have when you go to the doctor?
Yeah, I mean, the forms were really helpful. Just everything that you would normally put on a medical form. Here's all the meds I'm taking. Here's my medical history. So much easier if you just have it already filled out and hand it to them. And the other thing that I talked about was a HIPAA release, so that doctors could talk to my husband about my health, which they technically cannot do that even if it's your spouse or a parent, unless you're a minor. So those were the two things I did right away. And it was useful to have, but it also, day after diagnosis, you have no control over the disease. But that was something I could control, was let me at least get organized, put some things together that are going to help me get through this. And, that way you're going to see a lot of doctors. You're going to see a lot of different healthcare professionals. They're all going to want to know this information.
And how long was this process? Was it, because I have had friends in the past, some who had breast cancer and didn't make it, but it was back in the 70s and early 80s when I was a kid, and medicine was a lot different back then.
Right.
But then I've also been with people who recently have had, and they've gone through it like gangbusters. It was more of an inconvenience, it seemed, than it was an actual trauma. But when you start to, the whole process, sometimes it can, like I said, it can last the rest of your life, or several years, or it can last 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Where did you fit in?
I mean, it obviously depends on the treatment, the course of treatment, or if you choose surgery or whatever you choose. For me, from beginning to end, just dealing with the cancer part, forgetting the reconstruction for the moment, it was a 6-month process until I was, quote unquote, cured of cancer. So from the day I learned about it until my final chemo treatment was about 6 months. It's a busy 6 months. There's a lot of activity, but it's just not this endless thing, hopefully for most people. It wasn't for me.
So how do you cope with the fact that, because you seem like a person who doesn't like just sit around. You when I've met you seem like a person who does things.
Yeah.
Whether you're sick or not, you're doing a lot of things. And I'm sure when you are at work, you're doing hundreds of different things. So how does that affect you when you cannot go to work, but now you're taking a couple months off? I would assume maybe not off the whole 6 months was out of work, but if it was, how do you deal with the fact that you've got to transition from a very busy work lifestyle to now you have to ignore work? Doesn't that drive you a little nervous?
That was definitely one of the tougher parts for me. I've never had a child, so I never took maternity leave. I've worked my whole life. I'm pretty focused on that and other activities, and I don't really stand still for very long. And that was really tough for me. And I started off with this, a couple days after surgery, I should be back online checking email, No, that did not happen for me. For one thing, I was on painkillers, and it's just a bad idea to answer business emails when you're taking Percocet. It's just not a good idea. Everything seemed amusing to me, and I had interesting solutions to business problems, and just not good. So I had to keep readjusting my, I hate to use it, but the new normal of, okay, even email is off limits because I can't really process it and I can't really be helpful to anyone. And it was really tough. I definitely started feeling disconnected when you're out of the rhythm of every day what's happening. And when I could make it into the office, I didn't want to start a whole bunch of things because I knew who knows tomorrow whether I'll be here or not. So it's this limbo of, you know, what do I do? And I was fortunate to have an amazing team, but for me personally, it felt really, it was very challenging.
Was there anything that you did specifically to help you cope with that? You know, did you just send goofy texts and emails to yourself just so you could just get it out of your system?
No, I have to say that the way I got through a lot of this and the feeling disconnected part was by blogging and by having a journal. And so that was a connection for me. People would respond and I would post pictures and people would comment and it was interactive, and I really like to write. That's a great medium for me. So that's probably what got me through the whole thing. Oh, and RuPaul's Drag Race, which is on every 3 o'clock in the morning, faithfully.
Of course it's on at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Just a shout out to RuPaul, you know.
Yeah. Well, if RuPaul would like to sponsor this podcast, they can give us a call. I'll be glad to do that. But so basically trash TV and getting all your thoughts down onto either paper or, in this case, online. Is that how the book came about? Is that you took the blog and kind of tweaked it into a book, or did you write these blog posts and then write a whole new book trying to explain what had happened?
The blog posts were definitely the basis of the book. And I don't know if it's just because I had cancer, but people kept telling me I was a really good writer and I should write a book. And then after I was fine, I asked them again, okay, so really is this good? And I think the thing that got me is people said this would be helpful to other people. I'm not someone who thinks of myself as inspirational or, you know, I'm kind of a goofball. So it was just my personal experience. But when I really looked at it, there was a lot of information there, and there were things I wish I had known when I started. And so that formed the basis. And my journal was on a site called caringbridge.org, which offers free sites, no advertising, privacy settings, all that.
Yeah, and that's specifically for people with illnesses, with cancer, with
illnesses, family emergency, whatever it might be. And, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have people in your life, you know, who love you and care about you, your phone's ringing off the hook, you've got emails from everyone wants to know everything maybe, but there's these tiers, like, really, does this layer of people really want to know that, like, one of my drains came loose today? Maybe not. I don't know. So sending an email out about it was just not.
So how long a blog post? This is what I want. How long a blog post? How many words is about losing the drain? Is that like a 200, 400? How long is that one?
Listen, I'm good. I probably squeezed a good 600 words out of that. No problem.
No pun intended about the drainage as well.
Right.
So, but you were blogging about everything that you could just to get it out of so you could have something to process.
Yeah, absolutely. That, and I wanted to be really honest. I didn't, you know, I am, you know, I did have a sense of humor about it, and I am, whatever, an upbeat person. But I also wanted to be honest that it wasn't always sunshine and roses. You know, it was a lot. I mean, when flowers and fruit started coming in, that was nice. But, yeah, I tried to be as honest as I could and tell people exactly what was going on. And that way they had a choice. If they didn't really want to know, they weren't getting an email, they could not look at it.
Oh, so you set it up so only certain people got it, or would you just have a very descriptive headline so people would know not to continue?
I think people either caught on or they didn't.
Okay.
People who really didn't want to hear about my drains would still read it because they kind of knew that I would, get something funny out of it. So I did the best I could under the circumstance of taking lots and lots of Percocet.
I'm sure that really. Well, you were the Hunter S. Thompson of breast cancer. It sounds like.
Oh, in the same breath,
Yeah.
Hunter Thompson. I love that.
Well, mostly the drug use. I'm not 100% familiar with his. All I know is Johnny Depp plays him, and he takes a lot of drugs. So, but
yeah, the drugs are good.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the process. It obviously helped you. Was it something that you would recommend for other people, or at least somewhere to talk to someone?
Regarding the
blog post, just getting stuff out, just talking about it.
I mean, I think different people are comfortable with different things. Obviously, I'm very open, and it turned into something that was sort of fun for me and something I looked forward to. If I was someone who sketched, maybe I would have done that, or painted. I'm not big on the phone, so maybe if I was a phone person, I would have, called people more. I think it's whatever you gravitate toward naturally that sort of is a comfort to you is probably what you need to be doing more of, whatever that is.
Now, yours was not what we would call easy, not that any cancer is easy, but you had some complications throughout. And also you had some big decisions to make. I mean, it's not just what doctor do I go to. There were certain steps that you had to get major reconstructive surgery on both breasts.
Right.
So what is that decision process like? Because it seemed like you were more of a person that just grabbed a hold and made a decision versus spent weeks thinking about it.
I mean, I am typically pretty decisive, but, I had lots of choices. I could have had a lumpectomy. Having a double mastectomy was by choice. I certainly, no doctor said to me, you really should take the other breast off as well. I decided pretty early on that I wanted to do a bilateral mastectomy for any number of reasons, including the fact, to be quite honest, that I was 45 years old and they didn't look so great anymore. And I figured, hey, why not, So
this was all a big ruse so you could get your insurance company to pay for new boobs?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
And so, but you did make that decision, like, hey, let's turn these lemons into some lemonade, and let's get some new ones.
Right, or turn the cantaloupes into, I don't know, prosciutto and melon. But yes, I made that decision really quickly. My surgeon and my oncologist both thought that I was going too far, that it was
just a little too enthusiastic.
A little too enthusiastic. And that's the other thing. I really knew what was going to work for me and what was going to ultimately get me symmetry and the things that were going to be important to me. So I went with my instinct. I've never regretted my decision, not once.
And then also, one of the things that I know is very traumatic more for women than men is the losing hair through the chemo. Because thanks to Bruce Willis and all these bald men that are out there, losing your hair is more of an inconvenience. For me, it's an inevitability. So if I were to get it, I would shave my head probably the day they told me I had cancer because it wouldn't make a difference. But for a woman, it's a huge, huge impact.
Yeah, that was really one of my tougher days, to be honest. And I don't know why certain things hit me and certain things didn't. And I was fine. And then we got to the wig store. They did recommend that I go ahead and shave my head because it's not great when it just starts falling out in clumps. And so I took that advice and I went to get a wig, and the reality of my hair is going to be gone, for whatever reason, hit me. emotionally, and I really had kind of a rough day. I think the other thing is that for men, like you said, you're kind of used to seeing it, but when you see a woman with no hair, the immediate, response is, oh, she's sick. And so it kind of advertised to the world something that maybe wasn't on display quite that much before.
And so how did you cope with it? Because I know someone who recently had cancer, and when she found out she had cancer, almost immediately she bought a wig that matched her hair and then had her hairdresser cut it to her style. So the day after she shaved her head, you had no idea, because I saw her, it was Thanksgiving, and we had no idea. It kind of looked like, it looked just like her haircut. Maybe it was a little different, slightly, but if you didn't look real quick, you had no idea that she had it was a wig.
Yeah, I wasn't that clever. I didn't think that far ahead. I was, I have this curly, crazy, frizzy hair, and I was like, oh, I can have straight hair. It'll be fun. Maybe I'll do some bangs. And this was before Michelle Obama did it, by the way. And they do have really nice wigs, and you can style them. For me, the wig just was not working. It was itchy, and it was hot. This was summertime, and I had to style the thing every day. When you're sitting there with a curling iron with hair that's sitting on a head that's not yours, not good. Unless you're a hairdresser, that's not how you want to spend your morning. So I actually didn't wear the wig for very long. I just didn't find it comfortable. But you embraced the hat, because there's pictures in the book. I embraced the hat. We happen to have a really inexplicably large collection of hats in my house. And Halloween's one of our favorite holidays, so I had costumes. So I don't know how many other people look in their closet and can find, a hat that has a bear on it, which, by the way, has matching slippers that growl, or a cow hat that has udders on it. That was a Halloween costume one year. So, yeah, I had a little fun with it. We snapped some pictures. I tried different looks, and I tried to make, like everything else, just tried to make a little fun of myself. Well, and the book certainly does that. It's actually a great, if you know someone who is going through this, I think this book is a great comfort to know that it's not as horrible an experience as they make it out to be on TV, or as some people make it on themselves. You can have some fun with it. It just seems kind of odd that you can actually have fun while you're going through chemotherapy. I feel like, it's a reality. I was diagnosed. This wasn't something that was, based on a perception. We think you might have cancer. This is no doubt about it. You have cancer. So you can't change that part. And you're going to go through some stuff depending on, your situation, different things. So it's kind of, I might as well just go along and try and make the best of this. And it wasn't hell, and chemo wasn't at all, I think, what it used to be or how it was portrayed in terms of getting sick. I never once got sick and throwing up sick. So it's the reality, I don't think, is ever as bad as the anticipation. Well, before I let you go, I really appreciate your time, and I just want to remind people that since this is October 1st, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is one of the reasons I thought you'd be perfect for today. But if someone were to come to you or email you or read your book and then write you and say, look, I just found out I got cancer. Right. What is some advice that you would give a person who has never had any experience with it, all of a sudden is getting this news, and what was the one thing that you would like them to know? I would say take a breath. You're going to be okay. Chances are you're going to be okay. Take a breath. Don't panic. Think about what you want to do. Talk to good doctors. And don't think, as you said, it's not necessarily a death sentence at all. It might just be something you have to get through. And, I would take it one day at a time. Is a little cliche, but, you really don't know what's coming. So just make up your mind every day, I'm going to make the best of whatever the hell they're going to do to me today. And just kind of go with it and make sure that, you have a support system around you.
Well, the book is When Good Boobs Turn Bad, a Mammoir. Jill, if people wanted to talk to you or have you come speak at maybe at a women's event or a breast cancer awareness event, where can people find you?
I am, my website is jillfoerhirsch.com. So it's JILLFoerhirsch.com. And you can see more about my book there. You can contact me from that website. I would encourage women who are listening who are over 40 to definitely have a mammogram. This is the month to do it. If you've been putting it off, it's an hour that's well worth it.
Well, I think this was a half an hour well worth it. Thank you very much, Jill, and I'm glad everything's going well for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Craig. This was terrific.
That's our show for this week. Big thanks to Jill for sharing her story. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or head over to realitycheckpodcast.com to sign up for the newsletter, find out who's coming up, and get extra goodies from time to time. Like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at RealityCheckPod. And of course, all comments, questions, and guest suggestions can go to Craig at speakercraigprice.com. See you next week.